Good evening, guys, and happy Saturday to all of your sunshiny faces. So guys, I am actually getting ready to go to bed. It is actually pretty late and I'm expecting to go to grocery stores tomorrow, so that'll be interesting, trying to be up early for that. But like, Jewel has hardly, I mean not hardly, but not a lot of stuff really going on. Like not a lot of stuff that I really have to like remember about. I feel like, I don't know, like I feel like we're spending more than maybe some weeks that we do, but I don't know, like making my list was super quick. Like, so that's why I feel like there wasn't a lot really going on. Or maybe I was just really fast making my list this week. I don't know. I didn't end up getting to really too much today. Woke up sort of late. I was exhausted from the football game yesterday. Like, I don't know why, sitting in those bleacher seats, like we were only there for like the last like couple minutes of the frost off game. I think I was telling you guys, because like to the away games, we're not going to be able to go to those because like Jack has to be picked up, has to be dropped back off at the high school for the like to take the bus for varsity to go. And so they like he was like home for like 2 hours before he had to go back to the school to then go to get on the bus before the bus left to actually go to the game. I think the bus doesn't leave until like 6 o'clock though, but he had to be there at like 5:45, so he was home, like he got home at like 3 o'clock, so he's home for like over 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours, before I think again he actually had to go to the game. So that's why we were able to then, like once my mom dropped Jack off, then we ended up sort of like getting all of our stuff together and then we left. And it wasn't much later after that. We ended up getting the dogs all situated, packed up all of our things and stuff like that. And then ended up going to the game. How it worked out, and actually I felt like it worked out sort of well, but I wasn't even at the game for like that long. I didn't sit through the frost off game and through the varsity game. I was only there for, you know, like a few hours for the varsity game, and still like my back hurt, my legs were killing me, you know, like from sitting in the bleachers, and it wasn't even that long, but yeah, it's like I can't sit for that long. Like, it's so uncomfortable. Like I said, even with our like chairs and everything like that, like I could imagine how much worse it would be if we didn't have those nice little like bleacher seats, because it is nice because you can actually like lean back and stuff like that, but it's like there's really like no like cushion either. It is just uncomfortable to sit on. And again, it's still better than sitting on the bare bleachers, but it's not, again, the most comfortable thing ever. And you know, like I don't know too, it's just like sitting there for that long too, it's like you're adjusting your legs. Like, you know, I'll have my legs like down, then I'll have them crossed, then I'll have them like up on the seats in front of me and stuff like that. Like, it's again not like the most comfortable when you've been sitting there for that long. But like I said, we like didn't even catch the whole fourth quarter. We caught like a couple minutes of the fourth quarter at the end of the game. And then this team ended up yesterday night, they had their senior night, which was really weird. Normally every school that I've ever known always does their senior night their last home game. I don't know why they decided to choose this one, which I actually think was their first home game, I thought they said. Even though this is technically the second game of the season, I guess maybe they played the first two away, but I thought the guy said this was their first home game. So I don't know why they chose to do their first home game as senior night. Like, again, I don't know. But yeah, like I said, our school has always done it the last home game, because it's like the seniors' night, like their last night to be on the football field, their home football stadium, sort of. You know, so like that's why, I don't know, I thought it was really weird. Like I said, I don't know, I've never heard of that before, but they ended up doing it last night. So, but they had like the whole like procession thing, like, you know, they walked the seniors out onto the football field, and all the football players and the cheerleaders and the dance and band and all that kind of stuff. And so, it's a very long process. Like even our volleyball team, they did their, when Matthew played volleyball, theirs was the last home game too. Like I said, this, I don't know, it was very weird. But because of that, it ended up not like starting late, I feel like, but again, it was just like extra stuff to sit through. It wasn't like, okay, like, you know, the varsity, you know, the frost off games over, the varsity game's going to start right after that. It was like a good, like, you know, they had to wait, then they could go and practice, like all that kind of stuff. So maybe it added a little bit extra time on, you know, instead of like, I think it's normally 7:30 start time, maybe it was like 7:45 or something, or I don't know, maybe the frost off game ended a little bit earlier, so they were able to, you know, squeeze it in or whatever. But anyways, so like I said, we sat around, maybe it seemed like a little bit longer, like for the start of the game, like it wasn't just like the frost off game ended, now it's a varsity game, it just seemed like it took longer. But again, in the grand scheme of things, probably not. But I just felt like we sat through like 2 football games, and we really actually didn't. But the thing that was actually kind of, it's interesting, and will be interesting for the 4th game of the season, guys, right? There's only 9 in the whole football season. So we're almost actually halfway through already, which is sort of crazy, because next week will be number 4, and then again, like 5, I guess, is sort of the halfway point. But we're almost halfway through, right? I checked the weather for next week. It's supposed to be 88 degrees on Friday. I was like, that's still crazy. I don't ever remember having this many football games where I haven't been like, oh, I have to like bundle up and like wear a jacket or like a sweatshirt or something like that. Like I wore this lightweight sort of like athletic, you know, long sleeve, like shirt, and I wore jeans. I was gonna wear like leggings that were, you know, like cut shorter, but I was like, I don't want my legs to be cold. I was like, I'll just wear like jeans, you know, hopefully I'll be fine. And I wore gym shoes. Like normally by this time too, I remember like already wearing boots like in September. And again, like, I mean, normally not that bad, but like just knowing like, okay, the game's gonna be at night, it's, you know, the sun's gonna go down, it's probably gonna get into like the low, you know, like it's gonna be like 60s and stuff like that, like, you know, this is gonna be sweatshirt weather. I was wearing, like I said, what I'm wearing pretty much exactly today, and I wore this around the house where it's much cooler, I feel like, in the house than it probably even was at the game. I mean, maybe it was colder at the game yesterday, but again, like our air conditioning's still going because it's still hot outside, like especially during the day. So like I said, I wore this, but then at about halftime, I was like, I'm a little chilly. And I had my sweatshirt out of my bag, out of my purse, because I grabbed my phone out of there. So I pulled my sweatshirt out and just left it like on my lap. And then by about halftime, I was like, it's a little chilly, but like the sun had already pretty much gone down and it never got colder. Like I think the coldness just maybe sort of started to catch up to me by halftime, and I was like, I guess I'll just put it on. So I put it on at halftime. It wasn't like I said, like really that cold, and I probably could have just sat through the entire game with just this, wearing this, and not have been cold. And again, this is the 3rd game of the season, and next week actually looks like it's possibly going to be warmer. Yeah, the game yesterday actually will probably be colder than the game next week. And like, it's weird too, like I remember actually Matthew's, his senior year, the last game of the season, I remember his actually whole senior year, it wasn't really that cold of a season again, but it was like I knew what to expect. I was like, you know, probably like a long sleeve and then a sweatshirt over it or whatever. And again, there were maybe a couple games where it was like, oh, it was a little bit colder or something like that, but there were never any games where I was like, oh my gosh, it's freezing cold, like it's gonna be like 40 degrees by the time the sun goes down. Like we've had, I think, a couple games where it was like that almost, like at night, like, and it was like frosty out almost, like, and it was freezing cold. Like we were like bundled up, like you know, blankets, mittens, scarves, you know, hats, all that kind of stuff. But again, like I remember Matthew's senior year, the very last game, I brought a blanket and I was like, I actually don't really need this. So like I do know that again, there is sometimes where like it feels like spring or fall just lasts for a really long time. But like I said, it's weird. Like I probably could have worn a tank top last night and maybe just thrown the sweatshirt on again, like by the time the game started or halftime or something like that. And I don't really remember ever being able to do that much. Like it just feels, again, like I said, I don't necessarily 100% remember, but like again, Matthew's senior year, I do remember like the last game, the final game of the season, which wasn't at home, so it wasn't their senior night, they had it the week before that. But like I said, I remember it being like not that cold, but I probably had maybe a layer or two on, like an extra layer or two underneath probably what I was wearing. And I remember, like I said, not being that cold. And maybe I even brought gloves and maybe I wore them, maybe I didn't, but again, it wasn't like that freezing cold. So, yeah, like I said, it's gonna be interesting, because then again too, Jack's like, was it Jack's? I think Jack's freshman year though, there was one game where it was so cold. I think that was the one where it, like, by the time the sun set and by the end of the game, because Jack wasn't playing because he played in the frost-off game before, but we stayed for varsity game, and that was the year that it was, I think that game in particular was like 40 degrees or something like that. We had the huge, like, big comforter blanket, all four of us, because Matthew was there too, were all like huddled underneath it, and it was stinking cold that day, I just remember. But again, and I thought that game too, that wasn't even like the last game of the season. It was like maybe the third to last, so it was only like maybe about 2 or 3 weeks away from like this point now. And I'm like, I can't imagine it being that, I mean, don't quote me guys, knock on wood, I'm gonna say that, is that, you know, like that drastic of a change where like I'll be in a tank top probably, like, you know, short sleeves next week for the game, you know, at least by the start of the game, and then probably, you know, like by a week or two from there, then wind up being bundled up under a blanket and it possibly frosting outside. Like, that's the kind of stuff that definitely can happen in the Midwest. But yeah, I'm not totally sure that is, like, it seems like it's trending where it's like almost not getting warmer, but like we had a little dip and now it's like going back up again and gonna be warm, and like, you know, I'm not seeing like a drastic, like all of a sudden like it's just gonna drop off. Like, we're still having pretty warm weather, which is nice. But again, it's only like still the beginning of September pretty much, so I'm not expecting it to be like, oh, freezing cold already. But I am a little interested about this like weather that, like I said, looks like next week and then like all the way through. So like, I don't know how many day forecast like the weather app shows, if it is 14 or something like that, but I saw no days where it was supposed to be like a high. The high was always going to be at least 80 or more. I think actually maybe Wednesday was 77 of this week, but I think it's the day after it's supposed to rain, so that's probably why. But then it looks like it's still supposed to get back up into the 80s and stay in the 80s for like the next, again, week plus. So like I said, gonna be interesting, guys. It looks like at least close to the next 2 weeks we're still gonna have pretty warm weather, which is, again, like, I don't mind. But yeah, it's like, I feel like this is actually perfect football weather. Like, I like this, like, still being able to throw on like a sweatshirt when it gets a little chilly, but not having to be like, okay, I'm gonna bundle up like 8 layers and then be like, you know. It was funny too, because the spring season that we had last year, because of, you know, they didn't get to have it in fall, and so they had it just this last spring, and like being all like bundled up, because the day it would be like super warm out. And it's so weird too, because once you're in like the heat of summer and then it goes to being cold, you're like, oh my gosh, it's freezing. Whereas like when you're in the like the deep cold of winter and then the spring starts to get warm, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so nice and hot. Even though it's the exact same temperature in both seasons, like spring and fall, it just feels different, you know. And so like, I remember being like, oh my gosh, it's so hot out today in spring, and being like, but we're gonna have to bundle up for the game because it's gonna be cold. And like, everybody else is like outside in like shorts and like flip-flops and stuff like that, because again, it's finally the first nice days of spring and we're over here like all bundled up and looking like crazy people. But it's because as soon as the sun goes down, it's gonna get cold again, and you know, so that's why I was like, it just hits different, you know, for like spring versus fall. And that's one thing that I was like, I didn't realize this, you know, having this weird spring football season that we did last year. So that's why, again, like yesterday's night, I probably would have been like, wow, this is amazing. Like, you know, bring on summer, you know, sort of thing. I'm sort of like, oh my goodness, it's fall. It's, you know, it's starting to get chilly out at night once the sun goes down. So yeah, but anyways, like I said, I'll share with you guys my haul for tomorrow to go to Jewel and everything like that. But I will see you guys all in tomorrow's vlog. If you guys did enjoy today's, make sure you guys give a big old thumbs up. If you guys are new, we'd love if you'd subscribe, and I'll see all of your sunshiny faces tomorrow. So bye, guys.